So most of my Ferrari builds, projects start off with a simple picture that people send me, and then around that I either create a story or I buy a car and do the build. This one, however, was slightly different. In mid 2020, I had a #1 chart-topping DJ send me a voicemail saying he knew of a Ferrari that would absolutely fit my channel. Obviously, everyone knows that my channel is all about Ferraris, and this one apparently was the one that was gonna blow it up completely. I spoke to him, I gave him a call, and it transpires that there was a Ferrari Boxer, a 512 BBI, not far from my house, that if you looked at Google Maps, you could see it was well documented on a few forums that this Ferrari had been parked up for about 16 years. And you could see in the pictures from Google Maps how it had gradually deteriorated from a very, very mint car through to something that looked extremely rough. Anyway, I had the conversation, and the chap mentioned that he knew exactly where this car was. So the next morning, I spoke to my missus and said, look, I really would love to do this. I'm a sucker for neglected Ferraris, as you will know if you watch the channel. And this one was right up my street. I wanted to save this car. So I did something the next morning that I don't normally do, completely out of my comfort zone. I jumped in my car, I jumped in a Ferrari to save a Ferrari, drove about an hour away and went to this location that I wasn't invited to. I then, again, really outside my comfort zone, knocked on the guy's door. No answer, but his neighbor turned up, saw me in the car. We got talking, and he said, "Oh, I know the owner. Let me have a word with him." So eventually, I got to talk to the owner. Saw this car parked on his driveway. Couldn't believe what I was seeing. This Ferrari Boxer just looked completely neglected. It was covered in moss. I'd never seen anything like it. It was a white car, and you could really see like the 15, 16 years of just dirt that had ingrained itself into the paintwork. But the owner was very gracious. He told me all about the car, told me how it was owned by a Saudi prince, was the first owner in London who owned half of London at the time. And he let me walk around the car, and he even let me film it. So I started filming this car. It was a 6,420 mile car with history, and it was a very rare, what I discovered, a one-of-one Ferrari 512 BBI. They created 42 right-hand drive. There was about 1,000 they created. They did 42 right-hand drive cars. And this one was the only one that was built in white. So it was incredible to actually experience it. I then went around the car. I filmed it for the channel. And when I came to edit it, I realized I was just so blown away with it. I had to cut out the amount of times I said "wow" when I was filming this car. So we looked around it. I did the filming on it. We were opening up. Open up the rear clam. The engine was covered in moss. We opened up the front of the car. We had all the toolkits. The amazing thing about this car was it was complete. Everything was there. We had all the toolkit. We had all the jack kit. We had all the documentation with it. And it was just the perfect find. Now the problem was, when you see something like that, naturally, me being me, I wanted to save this car so badly. But the owner was absolutely adamant. He'd bought the car in 2006. He'd driven it for about a month, and for one reason or another, he then parked it up. And as I said, you could watch this thing over the years. It never moved. And he was never going to sell it. He had dealers, he had private guys literally turning up at his house with bags full of cash to try and buy this car. And he was adamant he was never going to sell it. So this was the middle of 2020. I'd done this video, I'd gone around the car, I fell in love with it. And the Boxer was never really on my radar as one of these Ferraris that I wanted. I had several other Ferraris, and then seeing this car, I needed it so badly. And I left off the video in the middle of 2020 saying I was going to do my utmost to try and save this car. 6 months went by, nothing happened. I tried to keep in touch with the neighbor. I couldn't speak to the owner of the car. And then it came to the end of 2020 and I got a call saying the car has come back. Now what happened in the meantime was I'd put the video out, something had happened with the owner, and to protect the car, it went into a police compound where it was stayed for 6 months. It then came out of the police compound. Well, long story short, there were some parts missing from the car. As I'd seen in the original video, the car was complete. We had everything there. The toolkit was mint. The amazing thing about the car, by the way, was that although it looked terrible on the outside, the door seals had held up really well, and the interior of the car, despite having a few dog hairs on it, you could see that just a quick vacuum in there and the interior was going to be mint. The car came back out of police compound. There were some bits missing. We couldn't discover exactly what had happened there, but that was the icing on the cake for the owner. And he decided enough's enough. I'm going to sell the car. And he'd made his decision, but he wanted it to go immediately. Now, I wasn't in a financial position to be able to buy the car. So I said, look, just please, just give me a little bit of time. I had a Ferrari 355 at the time, a very, very nice example. So I spent a weekend cleaning it up, doing everything to this car, put it on the channel, put this cleanup video on it, and I sold the car actually within 7 hours, which enabled me to then partially, it was almost enough money to buy the car. So it's on my channel. I paid £80,000 for this BBI, and I'd sold the 355 very quickly, very cheaply at 50,000. But the owner was actually gracious enough to still sell me the car and say, right, you owe me 30 and we've got 2 months to pay it. So that was fine. I then went to pick it up. We got the car back to my house, extremely happy, one of the best moments of my life, and I managed to save it. After that, we started to restore the car. I suddenly realized I got the car back. I was just so excited about it that I hadn't even checked to see if the engine was seized, anything like that. I just had to have this car. So we got the car back to mine. I checked the engine. Fortunately, it wasn't seized. Still, to this point, have not run the car. And what happened really then was that the YouTube channel, I started putting the videos on the YouTube channel, they started doing extremely well. And really from that, YouTube drove the decision on how I was going to fix this car up. My initial thought was, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to get it driving, I'm going to enjoy it. Weighing up everything, the fact that it had such low mileage, it was a one of one, it was documented at the time that it was the best example of the BBI in the UK, if not the world, when this guy initially bought it. That made me decide, right, okay, what we're going to do with this car is we're going to nut and bolt restore this one. So we started to work on it. I did a couple of videos and it was more about just checking everything was working, trying to find out what had happened with the stolen parts. I put it out to my audience, and to this day, every time a BBI toolkit comes up, I get emails. So, is this the stolen one from the car? So far, we haven't found it. So keep them coming, guys, because anything. We had mirrors stolen, toolkit stolen, some paperwork stolen, but we've managed to sort out most of it, but I'm still looking for a toolkit. We started doing the rebuild on this car, and I got in touch. Really, the worst part of it was the exterior, the paintwork. So I got in touch with probably one of the best known detailers in the world, Ammo at NYC. We're in the middle of lockdown and said, look, this is the Ferrari I've got. Would you like to get involved? Help me with the cleanup of it. Yeah, I'm totally up for that. How are we going to do it? Nobody could fly anywhere. There was no way of getting Larry over to the UK to actually do the cleanup. But somehow we managed to work together and decided to do Larry coaching me via video conference on how to clean up this BBI and detail this BBI. We did a fantastic job. It's actually my biggest video, almost 3 million views on that one. We even gave it to Lab Bible. I think it's like 20 million views on Lab Bible. So the car on video looked like it was transformed, and it was. But what you don't see on video is that when you go close up, there was still quite a lot of bubbling on the paintwork. It needed a lot of work. The interior came up fantastic, but obviously we needed to do the engine, we needed to do the repaint. And so from there, we started to strip the car back despite a lot of protest for originality of paint and things like that. I had a lot of very cool people who came on board. We had Coney Suspension who got in touch and said, look, we will try and keep all the originality in the suspension system. Obviously, the key thing with this car, with such low mileage, being a one of one, is to keep it as original and keep everything as it came out of factory. So that was the plan with this car. So we had people like Coney get involved. They took away all the suspension, and you think when it came back, it was brand new. It is just crazy. They took everything away, refinished it, and so that's all ready to go back in the car. We did a few other things. We worked with tyre companies who got the original TRX tyres, some Ferrari parts people, Red Bay Ferrari parts provided, all new airboxes for this car. So when we put it all back together, eventually, we're still not at the point. At the moment with the car, we've stripped it right back to frame, and we're going to be starting to do all the paintwork on it soon, put all this lovely shiny stuff on, all the suspension, do all the interior, and at some point, it is going to be probably the best BBI in the world. So my intention with the car is always to fix these things. I never do it for making profit. It's obviously nice to do that. And this car is going to obviously take quite a bit of investment to get it pristine again as it came out the factory. So it cost me 80,000. I'm going to probably put in another 50. But at the end of it, hopefully being a one of one with such low mileage, it's going to probably be over £300,000. So it's not a bad find.
Right now, I need all of you to click the link in the description below and visit Auto Tempest. Not only is it the best place to shop for your next car, but they're the ones that allow us to have so much fun doing Car Trek. I hope that you enjoyed Car Trek 8. We just released that on Freddie's channel, and now we're off to film 9 and 10. So seriously, we can't do it without you guys supporting Auto Tempest so they can keep supporting VinWiki and supporting Car Trek. It's honestly where I start most of my days because it allows me to search all the major listing sites at the same time. I find my cars faster, much more easily, and I find them in the nooks and crannies of the internet that I never would have found without Auto Tempest.